Hello lovely people! I know that for a lot of you, one of the main reasons you come to my channel is to learn about parts of history we just don't get taught in school. Disability, queerness and feminism. And as a disabled gay woman, I feel you. I think it's really important to share stories from the LGBTQ+ past because unlike other cultures, we don't tend to pass our history down to our children because, and I know this will shock some conservatives, gay people don't birth gay children. I mean, we can, but mostly we don't. Losing that generational thread often means that we're quite detached from people within our community who are older or younger than us, and that can be harmful at any age. When you're part of a marginalised group, it's really vital that you feel some cohesion, that you don't just feel like you're floating alone, but instead feel like you belong. No one wants to be the only gay in the village. I already have a playlist on my channel looking at specific queer or disabled figures from history, but I'm considering doing something about different parts of queer history, both on my YouTube channel where we can talk in depth, cutting that down to a shorter IGTV explainer on my Instagram, which there's a link to in the description, and then an even shorter explainer on my TikTok, which is also linked in the description. Let's share together in some rainbow history, the good, the bad and the fabulous. I thought I'd test the waters with this video, where we'll be learning about lavender marriages. So let me know what you think and if you'd like to see a full series. I'd also love to know what parts of queer history you'd like me to cover. I am just one little lesbian, but I'd like to make this series really inclusive and representational by talking about the other letters in the acronym too. What is a lavender marriage? Well, it might seem strange to us now as we tend to consider history to be even more homophobic than the world we live in today, but the early 20th century actually saw a very unique time for LGBTQ+ acceptance. Through the 1920s, gender nonconformity and queerness was openly shown in many big cities. Queerness was seen in plays and on screen in films like 1922's Manslaughter, the first film to show an erotic kiss between two members of the same sex. In fact, there was something called the pansy craze, which would definitely make a good video in this series, where lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual and queer people formed on stages around the world, and cross-dressing ballroom parties were all the rage, even for straight people, which we then see echoing down in drag culture. However, this tolerance didn't last forever. By the 1930s, the sodomy laws, which had been updated in 1923, were enforced harshly. Once prohibition ended in America, liquor laws were updated to allow alcohol to be served only in places which were orderly, which unsurprisingly didn't include gay bars. The cultural reactionary force against visible LGBTQ+ identities tied in with this sex crime panic, and whilst queerness could still be appreciated on stage and on screen, it was certainly not acceptable for the actual performers to be anything but straight. In fact, by the mid-1930s, production codes were put into effect that restricted and prevented performances of openly gay characters in film and television, as I spoke about in my video essay on queer coding, which you can click the card on the top left-hand side of the screen to view. Young actors and actresses shot to fame only if their off-screen image just as polished as their on-screen one. This meant towing the line and keeping within the moral clauses of their contracts with the big studios. The clauses, first introduced by Universal Film Company, permitted the company to discontinue artists' salaries if they forfeited the respect of the public through anything from criminal activity to disorderly or indecent conduct. Indecent. And for those who experienced same-sex attraction, well, that just meant doing whatever it took to prove that they didn't feel that way. And thus we come to the lavender marriage, a term coined to describe a marriage of convenience between a man and a woman in which one or both of the parties are homosexual and both are aware of the matter. If one person is straight, they're known as the beard. Funnily enough, these marriages were often arranged by the Hollywood studios themselves or the stars' agents, and usually involved pairing together a lesbian woman and a gay man. Although the term became popular in the early 20th century, it was actually first used in a British newspaper in 1895 when the colour lavender was associated with homosexuality. It's now used almost exclusively to characterise certain marriages of public celebrities and anyone else who has a public image that relies on them being not gay, as most private citizens are able to live openly. In certain parts of the world, obviously that's not the case the world over, we're silly if we imagine that everyone lives in a society where they can really fly their rainbow flag without fear of retribution and rejection. God, I hate homophobia. Oh, it's so bloody unnecessary. The gays really aren't scary. If we were, the Halloween Isle would be a lot more fabulous. those who went against the grain. Some gay actors chose to continue living openly, despite the risks. William Haynes, an actor contracted with MGM in the 1920s and 30s, lived with his partner, former sailor Jimmy Shields, and refused to hide their relationship. It was common knowledge that the two men lived together, although the romantically involved largely unspoken. It didn't dent his career until years later, when MGM gave him the ultimatum to either marry a woman or be dropped from the studio. Faced with the choice between his male partner and his career, he actually chose his boyfriend. I know, plot twist. His acting life was over, and the studio made sure that everyone, including their other gay stars, knew about it. I mean, he probably didn't mind that much, as he and Jimmy set up a really successful interior design business and he became very rich, and no one could tell him how to part his hair anymore, so However, with the destruction of his career being so public, it was said to have caused a spike in queer stars who had previously just stayed single, taking refuge in marriage. What are examples of Lavender marriages? Side note. Hi, this is speculation for fun, because these people are no longer with us. Please don't hypothesize in a way that outs people who are still around, even if they're famous. I know, it's really tempting, especially certain people. One of the earliest speculated Lavender marriages was the 1919 union of silent film actor and early sex symbol Rudolph Valentino and actress Jean Acker, who is rumoured to have been a lesbian. On the wedding night, she apparently immediately regretted her decision and locked him out of her hotel room. Understandable, she says in Lesbian. They divorced after 2 years, and he then went on to marry costume designer Natasha Rambova, which disguised her relationship with actress Alia Nazimova, which also ended after 2 years. The roles Valentino played were seen as less typically masculine, and he acquired the nickname the Pink Powder Puff. It was widely believed that his marriages were cover-ups to keep his ladies' man reputation intact. If you would like to see said ladies' man in action but don't know where to watch, then may I suggest Surfshark, accessing movies on the internet that you can't watch in your country. Surfshark is a VPN app and browser extension that allows you to access the internet safely and without barriers. By encrypting your data, it also hides your IP, meaning you can set your location to anywhere in the world, and thus watch classic films that may not be available in your country, like those featuring Rudolph Valentino or even Greta Garbo, who did not go for any kind of marriage, Lavender or otherwise. Watch my Marlene and Dietrich video for more on that. Since Surfshark keeps your data safe when you log onto public Wi-Fi, you do not need to worry about hackers gaining access to your info, and you get an extra layer of security, keeping all of your passwords, videos, and photos safe. And even if tracking isn't malicious, Surfshark can still protect you from it. No surveillance, phishing, and commercial tracking. You won't spend 3 hours looking at cute dog photos and then find that every advert for the next 2 weeks is just one dog bed after another. The best thing about Surfshark is that you can use one account across unlimited devices, so it's great for family sharing, making sure that you're all protected. Phones, iPads, laptops, and computers. Just click the link in the description of this video and use code JESSICA for 83% off, plus 3 extra months for free. And don't worry, if you have some lavender regret and realise that your marriage to Surfshark isn't to be, they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Much easier than most divorces. Click that link once you've watched the video and try it out for yourself. Another actor who was the subject of much rumour and conjecture was Barbara Stanwyck, who had many female lovers. When MGM realised that said rumours were going nowhere, they paired her with actor Robert Taylor, who had his own male lovers, and ordered them to get married, which they did on the 13th of May, 1939. At the conclusion of the wedding ceremony, Taylor refused to kiss Stanwyck, and instead he just went home to his mother's house for the night. So, lovely. Romantic. No one saw through that. The actor Tyrone Power was also surrounded by rumours, those of bisexuality in fact, and trysts with other Hollywood leading men. Unlike other actors in his situation, however, he took it upon himself to do something about the rumours and chose to marry French actress Annabella. Yes, her name was just Annabella. No, it wasn't one of the names she was born with. It's worth noting that he did genuinely seem to love her and many other women. Many other women. Many. Because bisexuals exist, people. Although he wasn't great with fidelity and his marriage did survive his affairs with both men and women, it couldn't really survive him getting Judy Garland pregnant and then leaving her on her own as she got an abortion. Like, no dude, it's not it. Popular entertainer Danny Kaye wasn't exactly the rugged type of leading man, and he was often cast in roles that portrayed him as weak, cowardly, and effeminate. It was known that he had been romantically involved with men during his vaudeville stage acting days, but in 1940 he married piano accompanist Sylvia Fine at the encouragement of his studio. Like Kaye, Vincent Minnelli had also lived openly as a gay man pre his career in Hollywood. However, the morality clauses in the film studio contracts forced him back into the closet, and he instead married Judy Garland, who was apparently completely aware of his sexuality. So, years later, she encouraged their daughter, Liza Minnelli, to only marry gay men, saying they made the best husbands. I'm still baffled as to how him marrying a woman worked to fit the morality clause when he was already out, but if you've seen my video about Netflix's vintage, gay, wish fulfillment series Hollywood, then you'll already have heard of Scotty Bowers, who makes knowing who might have been gay in the 1940s Hollywood a little easier. His memoir, Full Service, My Adventures in Hollywood and the Secret Sex Lives of the Stars, scandalous, details sexual encounters that he claims he both arranged and took part in. This includes Cary Grant, who lived with his roommate, Randolph Scott, for more than a decade and had incredibly coupley photos taken together, despite Grant cycling through 5 wives. I mean, come on, guys, you're adorable, but you're meant to be hiding it. Okay, one more. Many of the subjects, or their families, who Scotty Bowers describes, refute his claims of homosexuality, but he did include personal details and photographs in his memoir that he argues does back up his assertions, hidden birthmarks and all that. Another gay character based on reality featured in the Netflix show, and if you want to watch my breakdown of race and sexuality in early Hollywood, you can click the card in the corner of the screen, was Rock Hudson. He married his agent's secretary, Phyllis Gates, in 1955 in an attempt to stop rumours, but they separated 2 years later when rumours of his infidelity with men became too much. In fact, those very rumours fostered the growth of celebrity tabloid journalism, as Hudson's salacious secrets were spread around. Despite their deafening coverage, Hudson never addressed his sexual orientation publicly, although he was one of the first celebrities to disclose and then die from an AIDS diagnosis. Lavender marriages weren't all short-lived, although strangely a lot of them do seem to have lasted only for 2 years. Very specific. Actress Janet Gaynor married costume designer Adrian to cover up both of their homosexuality, but they had a child together and remained married for 20 years until Adrian's death in 1959. And not everyone did go with the Lavender marriage. English broadcaster and journalist Nancy Spain, who wore masculine-styled clothes and had love affairs with women, toyed with the idea of marrying a man to seem more respectable, but ultimately decided not to. Instead, she was openly in a romantic relationship with the editor of She magazine, Joan Verna Laurie, who is known as Johnny, of course, and lived in an extended household with the rally driver Sheila Van Dam and 2 children who may have been birthed by Johnny or by Nancy, but when you're upper class enough, you really can get away with anything. Lavender marriages became less prevalent in the 60s and 70s as the gay rights movement gained momentum following the Stonewall riots of 1969. Although LGBTQ+ representation in film and television remained pretty poor, and has only recently had an uptick, at least the private lives of its stars weren't quite so dictated by the studios. Although I'm sure there are still some for whom the practice is useful to protect their careers. Did you know that lavender marriages were a thing? Had you heard the term before? Let me know if you've enjoyed this video and whether you'd be really interested in seeing more queer history. Click the link in my bio to try Surfshark now, and I'll see you in my next video. And of course I can't go without mentioning, see this beautiful Because Gay badge? Well, it's just one of 3 that are available for pre-order now in my new merch store. Ooh, with DFTBA. You can also click the link in the description to find that. Mwah!